Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and today we're looking at the characters of the BPRD, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. I'm going to briefly explain the characters enough so that you can get the gist, but I'm not going to cover major story arcs in case you're interested and don't want those moments spoiled. I'm also only covering what are called the Enhanced Talent Agents, those with special abilities, or a few agents that have been gifted some sort of extraordinary weapon or ability that makes them unique. These characters we're talking about are often associated with the character Hellboy, so let's begin by talking about him. Hellboy arrived on Earth in 1944, when Rasputin tried summoning horrible forces from other dimensions, a twisted plan to assist Hitler in the Third Reich. Hellboy was just a baby, given the name Hellboy by the American soldiers that discovered him. His discovery fueled the creation of the BPRD, and Hellboy himself was raised by scientist Trevor Brutenholm, taught to fight against other evil creatures, constantly fighting his own destiny to be a weapon of destruction. He tries to use his gifts to fight evil, including many relics and talismans, and his stone right hand, created as a key to apocalypse, though he uses it to stand a chance against mighty beasts. Hellboy was featured in 2 films played by Ron Perlman and 1 film so far played by David Harbour. One of Hellboy's best friends in the BPRD is Abraham Sapien, or Abe Sapien. Discovered in a tank of water, the BPRD wasn't sure what to make of Abe, and they did experiments on him, until Hellboy forced them to release him. He's an aquatic creature, aging at a slower rate than normal humans, and able to regenerate most wounds he's ever received. His origin and what made him is a mystery that's slowly revealed over the course of the books. Abe was voiced in 1 film by David Hyde Pierce, and then in the 2nd film he was voiced by the actual actor in the suit, Doug Jones. The 3rd character in the most iconic trio of BPRD agents is Liz Sherman. At age 11, she discovered she had the ability to create flames, accidentally destroying an entire city block and killing 32 people, including her parents and brother. She was then raised by the BPRD and trained to control her powers. The pyrokinesis seems to be tied to her life force, as her powers are removed multiple times and it actually causes her physical body to weaken and potentially expire. In 2 of the Hellboy films, she is played by Selma Blair, and Liz was turned into a romantic interest for Hellboy, where the comics portrayed her simply as a friend. Hellboy's romantic interest in the comics is primarily a woman named Alice Monaghan. I'm including her here because it looks like Alice is getting the opposite treatment from Liz, and looks to be turned into a fellow member of the BPRD in the 2019 film. Alice's origin revolves around fairies in Ireland, where she was first kidnapped by fairies as a baby, then eventually befriending them, and winding up becoming a caretaker of their world, gifted with some ethereal powers. This looks very different from what we see in the 2019 Hellboy, with her character played by Sasha Lane. Let's get back to the BPRD agents. Fenix Espejo is a young woman who can detect danger before it happens. She was homeless when we first meet her, and she uses her powers to protect the helpless and to avoid some pretty cataclysmic events, until she was eventually found by the BPRD. She was trained there by an older psychic, Panya. Panya is a mummy, an ancient Egyptian figure that was mummified and yet reawakened when someone was unraveling her bandages. She discovered that she was a powerful psychic, able to control others and even speak through them, while many, many miles away. We have another psychic to discuss, where things turned out very differently. Johann Kraus doesn't have a body. See, he learned to leave his body and travel the world in an ectoplasmic form. While he was doing this, his actual physical body was caught in an explosion and he now had no physical form. He went to the BPRD with this problem and they developed a suit for him to inhabit. Since he has no body, his psychic abilities are even stronger than most, as he's able to communicate with spirits and even grant them temporary physical forms, so that ghosts can speak to normal humans. His biggest weakness is reliance on the suit, worrying that without it, he would eventually dissipate altogether. He was helped by another psychic in the BPRD, Izar Hoffman, who appears very little in the comics but is referenced as being a high-ranking psychic, often out on assignment. But he was the one able to discern Johann's existence as a spirit and to help create his containment suit. In Hellboy: The Golden Army, Johann is voiced by Seth MacFarlane. Let's talk about the former Marine, Captain Ben Daimio, a Vietnamese man who served in the US military for many years, eventually sent on a mission where he collided with a cult, worshipping an ancient jaguar spirit that slashed his face and actually killed him, though he rose back to life, now the host to this jaguar spirit that can take over his body and transform him into a massive beast. Relatively indestructible, except for magic weapons and some other supernatural beasts. It's risky to unleash the jaguar spirit, as it often has a much more violent tendencies than Daimio might want. Daimio was played in the 2019 Hellboy by Daniel Day Kim. Another member of the team that's fairly unique is Roger. Roger is what's called a homunculus. If you're familiar with the concept of golems, inanimate creatures brought to life, such as stone or ice, then a homunculus is a being brought to life involving actual human tissue and other often disgusting means. Roger's body was discovered in a Romanian lab, brought to life by the spark of Liz's pyrokinesis. He eventually went on to join the BPRD and even earned a promotion to lead teams out into the field. There's a former BPRD agent named Sidney Leach, who had the unique ability to detect and manipulate metal. He did not appear in many comics before he eventually retired from the BPRD. In the introduction, I said I was focusing on enhanced agents, but there's one human agent that I want to include here with a wild story. Ted Howards was a normal agent whose team encountered a sword called the Hyperborean Blade. Hyperborean in this instance means a race of people living in the far north, the snowy tundras near the North Pole, and are considered in this mythology to be the first people created. When Ted touches this sword, it shoots his mind back into a prehistoric warrior named Gal Denar, whose tribe wielded this sword. Eventually he's awakened by Johann, and he now wields the sword as a weapon in modern day. Lastly, we have a human character that appears to show up in the 2019 Hellboy and is worth a little discussion. Lobster Johnson. In the comics, Lobster Johnson is a vigilante in the 30s, fighting the Nazis and imprinting a lobster claw logo onto them. He's advertised as a fictional character, a serialized hero for the radio and magazines, but in truth, he really existed to fight crime. I don't believe he ever served in the BPRD because it wasn't really in existence yet, but he still fought the supernatural. After he was killed, he even continued fighting evil as a ghost, able to turn into a physical manifestation and continue to shoot and brand his enemies. He appears in the 2019 Hellboy, played by Thomas Hayden Church. Hopefully you found this interesting. If I happen to miss some characters, just chime in on the comments and share why you like those folks. I've also included some links in the description for a preferred reading order of Hellboy and BPRD issues, just in case you're interested in getting started. Make sure to subscribe for more stuff like this, and thank you for watching.